Hello everyone and welcome to an episode in the world of Ford Focus Mark 1s, and this time, how many left? Yes, it's been a while since I've done an episode covering this subject, and there's a very good reason for that. For some reason, the DFT have not released any data for at least 8 months as far as I last recollected, and I haven't done any videos on this for probably about a year. Because the information is quite vague when they do their little updates throughout the year. But the big one is around May time or June, when they release all the data around engines, yearly breakdowns, you name it. And when it comes to how rare is my car, how rare all my cars, or just finding out exactly how many we've got left, and also obviously because I'm in charge of the club, it's nice to know how many Focuses you're playing around with, put it that way, if you get my meaning. This is obviously only UK data, so it's a nice idea to just recap and update a little bit. The Mark 1 population has been completely decreasing year on year now. It's been very obvious on the roads. I can't see anything no more. Around by me, there might be the odd one or two. In some areas there's more, and some areas there's certainly less, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about there. So what we had about a year ago, and I can give you some yearly breakdowns here because I've been doing this for a few years now. Now, as much as the visual aspect, we've also got this, which is quite obvious. Now, many people go on that website, how many left. That gets the same information that I get. The difference is that the person who does it mixes up Mark 1s and Mark 2s. So it's not very accurate. For certain limited editions, it is pretty accurate. Depending on how accurate it was registered in the first place, and therefore information that that website uses and I use is also probably inaccurate because the information wasn't recorded properly. For instance, cars not recorded correctly, for instance. For some reason, I suspect that a lot of Z-Tech automatics have been registered as Z-Tech automobiles. I'm not joking. There is serious amounts of poor registrations done by presumably the dealerships in this case, submitting all the details to the DVOA, I should say. So that doesn't help. But also, obviously, with Z-Techs and LXs and a few other specifications, gears as well, there is a crossover towards Mark 2s around 2005, and therefore both of them get mashed together. And the number is far higher on how many left website than actually I record. I use my own algorithms to decide what data to dismiss and what to accept. And the general given is that I go on a percentage. So whatever number it is for 2005, I genuinely think Mark 1s represent 40% of that number. The other 60% are Mark 2s. So for instance, if there's 4,000 gear models in 2005, which is a crossover to Mark 2s, I will generally think that only 40% of that figure are Mark 1s. So I'll do a calculation for what's 40% of 4,000, etc. Okay, and then obviously the remaining part are Mark 2s. I dismiss that. Now that percentage is based on several things that I've decided on to make this data really accurate. Otherwise, there's just no point me doing this, and the information that I'm giving you is useless. So for those cars, I've had to come up with my own algorithm, and there's a few other algorithms that I've worked on just to refine the data and to match what I think looks right and what doesn't look right. There have been some errors, even in the DFT's own statistics, I should say. These files are updated by the DFT. It's the DFT statistics files section. But you're going to need to know what file to exit. And to be honest, to go into these files. These are huge spreadsheets. They're, I think, CSV spreadsheets, something like that. A good laptop is required, because otherwise your laptop is just going to go into a shutdown. You can't really do it with a Google Chromebook or something like that. So bear that in mind. When I started all this 3 years ago, it was Q4 2021. And remember, Q4 would be the end of December, okay, 2021. We had 93,942 approximate Mark 1s recorded when I first did this How Many Left business. And I was doing it on quite a few of the Ford Focus Mark 1 Facebook groups, so I think that's how people got to know my name a bit. He's the bloke who knows what he's talking about, I think. A year later, Q4 2022, it dropped down to 70,000. That's a drop of 23,000. Now, that's quite a significant drop, considering that there's less than 100,000, and 23 is like almost a quarter. That's ridiculous, and it was. It's a percentage decrease of 24.7% as I'm looking at it. So almost a quarter, okay? Then we go to last year's, which was Q4 2023. We actually dropped from 70,000 Mark 1s to 53. That's just ridiculous. We've lost 17,000 2 years ago. 17,000. Now, that's not as bad as 23,000, but that's because there's less left. So that's a percentage drop of 23.9. So almost exactly what it was before. If it was a graph, it's barely curving. It's just going straight down. Or I should say, from your angle, this way. What you guys need to know is, where have we gone from 53,742, which was the last time I did a video? My prediction, by this time, it was around 40,000. And you can go back on that video and quote me on that. After looking at all the specs, all the specifications have dropped a fair bit, and I'm a bit concerned that they're not dropping as I expected. They're not slowing as I expected. I also look at SORN data. Now, all this information is the cars that are taxed, not SORNed. I'm not interested at this present in SORN data, because I'm not being funny. The majority of these cars are never going to return to the road. There are only a tiny handful of people in my fist, and most of them are club members, that are taking these cars off the road, for instance, what I've done with 50 Shades, to preserve them, restore them, repair them long term, etc. We're talking about a handful of people. The rest of those cars, they're going to go to the Banger Boys that are probably stockpiling them up, because we know that the Banger Boys love Mark 1s. They crash well. That was a quote I was told, and unfortunately there's quite a few of them with them. I hope they stop that, because there won't be any left. And not at this rate. And also, you've got cars that are just sitting around. In fact, there's quite a few cars like that where they just get left. And Mark 1s are now at that age where, if they're in the company of an older couple, generally they get left for some reason. Maybe someone's lost their driving license or got ill. It's been left in a garage on the driveway. It's rotting. It's literally got moss on it. It's sad. And these cars actually go off the radar quite easy. Some of them are not even SORNed. They're actually untaxed. So the problem is, some of these SORN cars, well, there's actually cars that are not even SORNed. So I couldn't really tell you that information accurately. What I can tell you accurately is the cars are on the road. And 99% of them are cars that are either still functioning, working, or are going to remain on the road long term. So when we talk about cars being taken off the road for preservation, and shouldn't that reflect in the SORN numbers? Well, it will over time, but not yet. We've got 5-10 years yet before I even start looking at that SORN this SORN data with some seriousness. And at a glance, I can tell you that there is absolutely no sign that people are taking them off the road to preserve them. Because what would happen is the number of cars taxed would come down, and therefore the cars would pile up on the Sawn. But that's not happening. What's happening is you've got your Sawn cars and your taxed cars. Your taxed cars are coming down, but the Sawn cars are virtually staying where they are, maybe going down a little bit. There was only 3 or 4 models where it's actually crept up by about 10, 20 cars. So in fact, basically, in the grand scheme of things, they're going nowhere. We are losing Mark 1s. So what they're doing is they're untaxing, becoming Sawned, and then going to the scrap. That's why the number's steady on the Sawn numbers. That's quite important to know. Now, before I give you that final grand total, I'll go through some models. Unfortunately, we have immediately the rarest Mark 1, the Millennium Edition. That's not very good. There was 40 of them 12 months ago. Now we've gone down to 33. We've literally lost almost a quarter of them left. That's quite high. That's quite a high amount of cars considering there's only 40 left. So yeah, if you've got a Millennium C1, I'll try and preserve it unless it's completely gone. People don't seem to like them, otherwise that number would have pretty much slowed down by now. I suspect that we've got about 4 in the club, I suspect, but we might have a few more. Zetec collections, they've gone down by a few, but not as many as the Millennium, probably about 3. Yeah, 3. Blacks, they've gone down by about 20. Silvers, 20. Most of these special limited editions, LE, Ebony, MP3. MP3, there's only 68. The MP3 is now, well, actually it's the 3rd rarest, because I'll come to the 2nd rarest after the Millennium. Sport TDCI. I'm not joking. I have checked and rechecked my stats on that because quite a few of them were registered. 62. That's it. That is your 2nd rarest Mark 1, Sport TDCI. Nobody wants them because they're diesels. Now, RS cars, I can't really say too much. There's about 366 of them that were currently taxed in Q4 2024. However, this is December. RSs don't go out in the winter, generically. So, incredible that there's actually 1 that's taxed at that time of the year. Notably, though, there have been quite a few RSs that have been lost over the years. So, and a number has actually decreased by about 5 or 6 from what I can see. Not very much. They're collector's cars. I'm not really interested because those numbers they're not going to change too much. But it's a good thing for that car. But apart from everything else, the Edge and the Flight are the most popular ones. There are still around, respectively, 14 to 1,700 examples of them taxed. Okay. In terms of Edge diesels, the majority of those Edges, 15 of them, 92% of them are petrols, about 1,500. Actually, over 1,500. Only 146 of them are diesel Edges. That's incredible. My friend Jason has got one. We've got one in the club. What a rare car that is. I think that's worth hanging on to. I really do. So like the Sport TDCI, the Edge TDCI, again, incredibly rare, very rare. But all the special limited editions are generically now below around 150. Okay. I think while the highest ones is the Ink with 170, but that was one of the most recent special limited editions. In terms of everything else, the main models, your CL's not doing very well. If you have a 1.8 diesel CL, God, 146 of them. Incredible. 90% of them are petrols and mainly 1.4s, maybe the odd 1.6 if it's an estate CL. 1,300 just over. Yeah. LXs, we've gone down quite a bit. I'm afraid we've lost 4,000 LXs in the last year alone. It seems to be the model that has bore the brunt of everything. I think it's one of them models. It's not poverty spec. It's not a sporty mid-sporty Zetec or luxury gear. It's got some luxuries than a Zetec has from the factory as standard, but it's one of those. I don't really fancy one of them cars. It's a weird spec, an LX on a Mark 1. It's got some nice toys, especially with air conditioning and climate control, but yeah, it's not really as attractive as a Z-Tech, put it that way. Z-Techs, they've gone down by a few thousand as well. We've lost 3,000 of them, and there's about 13,000 of them remaining. The majority of them are manuals, obviously 73% of them, about 9,000 and a half are manual. Petrols, petrol automatics, 23%, quite a nice percentage. Automatics, the automatics do very well. The total percentage of automatics to manuals in the Mark 1 scheme of things is around 20%. And I can guarantee there wasn't 20% of them manufactured compared to 80% manuals when they were all brand new. It'd have been something like 10%. And that's because the automatics are doing very well. They tend to live very nice lives compared with the manuals, and they are not abused, and they're not owned by people that generally abuse their cars. So we might have some rare statistics here. I'm going to skip onto the gear, because with the gear, again, we lost about 1,000 or two. Not as many. They're very desirable now, gears. And I can see that trend happening. I think there's more people scrapping LXs and Z-Techs than gears for many reasons, including toys. Again, the majority, about 70%, are manual petrols. A small 21% would be automatics. 1.6 or 2 litre. I can do a breakdown of that, and I'm going to try and find out how many 2 litre autos they are, so hang fire on that one. As far as the diesels are concerned, for all the LX, Z-Techs and gears, not very good at all. Diesels are really suffering. There are now less than 2,500 Mark 1 diesels, including the TDI Sport and the Edge diesel, as I've mentioned. They're so rare. We're talking penny figures. I mean, the worst one is Z-Tech TDDIs. I mean, you want a mid-range sporty Z-Tech with the TDDI engine, not very good. 148, and I'm not surprised by that. The most generous one is the Gear TDCI, and there are about 684 of them models left. That is it. TDDIs, let's build a picture here for especially TDDIs. 707. I can't really build a bigger picture than that. That just says everything, sadly. And I know my friend Adam has got 2 of them. Nobody else has got 2 of them, and that's going to be a real problem for those cars getting pieces. I'm really concerned by that. It's somebody needs to preserve one, but and it's going to be him probably. But yeah, it's not great. It's not great. The bi-fuel models. Well, there's 25 of them. That's all you can say about them. They're going to die out as well. Now, the one that I've left out to last, actually ST170s. This is the most surprising one of the lot. So the last time I looked at this, there was over 15,050, something like that. Okay. Well, we've dropped by literally 200 of them to 1,350. That's appalling. That's so bad. How has that happened? Literally, guys, ST170s, you know, fast forwards. Of all the cars that I thought would just give me a sign that you're slowing down or they're going up on the sawn, they're not. There's no sign that people are stockpiling these. It's like nobody wants them. That's a real shame, that is, for ST170s. I suppose it makes the others more valuable. That's not the point, is it? And I suppose that's not the point of this whole exercise. Because the grand total of the amount of Mark 1s on the road as of 6 months ago, because remember this data is 6 months old as of December 2024, 40,527. That is bad. That is really bad. That is an exact, almost, I said 40,000. I'm 500 off. I'm 500 cars off. my projection was spot on because I couldn't see it slowing at the moment, but I wanted to see some signs. There are no signs. No one's stockpiling them. They're just going straight to the scrap. Diesels are going to die out. Nobody's really caring for the ST170 Millennium either. There doesn't seem to be any change at all. I would like to think that the club and what I'm doing has an influence on these figures. Not really. I'm kind of appealing to people that are already in the tent with me, not people that are outside the tent thinking, should I try and buy one? And those are the people you've got to convince. But from what I see, the projections are getting quite serious. And what I can do is I can give you some future projections. Now, you can quote me on this because this is based off, again, an algorithm of percentage drops. So my prediction that next year it will probably go down to 32,000 approximately. It will respectively go down by a sort of decreased percentage because what I'm expecting is a slowing down from next year. I really do. You've got to see something now. There's less than 40 now. At this moment in time, by the way, we're 6 months down the line. I reckon we're around 35,000 of these buggers that are left. That's it. That's nothing. And that represents less than 5% at least of what was first registered. So we're definitely in not critical territory, but we're looking quite scarce. My prediction is by the end of the decade, 2029 Q4, so in 5 years' time now, gosh, I'll be quite an old age by then. We're looking at around 14 to 15,000, 14 to 15, maybe 16. It's going to vary between those two. So literally in the space of 5 years, which will be like that, I've been at this desk making YouTube videos for the last 3.5 years almost now. 5 years, this is flown by, and 5 years will as well. And all I will say to the long-term Mark 1 owners, start preparing for the long term. If you haven't already done so, try and get genuine sensors, get the stuff you can now. Because in 10 years' time, it's going to be very difficult to keep one of these cars running, even for, seldomly during the year. I do expect numbers to decrease next year, but that is a current projection, and that's quite alarming, considering the car will be 31 years since, it'll be 31 years since the launch of the Mark 1. And we don't have many examples to play with. We may even have less than that. But I think the projections are very much looking exactly as I predicted. So anyway, I will leave you be. And on that solemn note, we have some positivity. The rarer that my cars get, the more valuable I see them as, and the more worthy to look after. And I think that's everybody's point. If you are a current Mark 1 owner, with a very good Mark 1 or a good one or one that is getting better, that you want to make as good as cars you possibly can, as close to what it would have been when it was brand new. That's the aim of the game here. Then you don't need to worry. I think you'll be feeling quite pleased about these results in some respect. It's definitely that pro and con. Anyway, I will leave you be. And I will be divulging this information specifically on the Mark 1 Facebook page, on the club, and it will give a yearly breakdown for the members that have joined us, that are members for the time being, and they'll be able to find out exactly how many of their Mark 1 are left from a particular year. Exciting. Anyway, for most of you, take care.